Go Ask Alice is a show intended for adult audiences, because adults want to learn too. Sometimes we cover sensitive material, so please take care of yourselves, and listener discretion is advised. Now on to the show. Hello, Internet friends, and welcome back to another episode of Go Ask Alice, the show where we jump down random internet rabbit holes and bring you wonderful factoids from our adventures in Wiki Wonderland. I'm Drew, and this week I'm a sick boy. Anyway, with me is...
I'm Lindsay, and I've recently gotten into eco-bricking.
What?
What the what?
Yeah, you take a type 1 water bottle or something like that, and then you cut up all of the labels that you can't recycle, and you pack the water bottle solid until it's a brick, and people will use them for building projects.
Neat.
Wow.
Yeah, check it out. It's pretty cool.
That should be its own topic. And I'm Gene, and the amount of poop I had to deal with this morning was traumatizing.
That's not...
Was it human poop? I'll never tell you.
This is the show where we jump down random internet rabbit holes every week. We all start on the same wiki page, and we wander around the internet in search of something metrically fascinating that we are bursting to share with each other and with all of you. We've also gotten in the habit of sharing them on the spoilers channel of our Discord. If you want to come tag along, you can find the link in our Twitter, Go Ask Alice Pod. There is a link tree where you can find a permanent invite to the Discord. And I'm happy to report that all of our hints were really good this week because I don't think anyone got them right when they guessed. And looking at your guys' pictures, I have no idea.
Yep.
This week we started on insight, you know, that kind of magical realization of knowledge that people have. Where did everybody end up?
I'll go first. I ended up, do you know what the mirror test is?
Oh, I know what that is, yeah.
Maybe.
I knew about it loosely, and then I started reading that. I was like, ooh, this is interesting.
Okay.
So the alternative name is mirror self-recognition.
Okay, that
Test.
makes more sense. That's
Yes.
clearer. Okay. Drew?
I ended up on perception.
Ooh.
What?
We love perception. One of my favorite topics ever from psychology.
It's so cool. I read it and I was like, I gotta talk about this.
Yes.
Both of yours sound very psychological.
Definitely.
Well, I mean, it was based off of insight, so.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't think we wandered too far.
No,
from
we
this.
didn't wander
I
far
think
at all.
Mine was 2 clicks.
Oh my god, wait, so was mine. I just checked. Mine was 2 clicks.
Oh my gosh. All right, good topic.
Mine
then.
was like 3, so.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a good start page. I'm going to talk about minced oaths.
What?
Minced?
Okay.
Minced oath. But before we do, we are beholden to talk about the question of the week, or answer the question of the week. Normally that's Sarah's whole thing, so I think that leaves you, Gene. Do you want to introduce our question of the week?
Oh, I don't know what it is officially word for word, but I can kind of
Go for it.
paraphrase. Yeah, Our question of the week is, how and why did you end up on the username that you currently use?
Yeah.
So why Schwanzi, Gene?
Why Schwanzi? Oh, that is the $1 million question, isn't it? Okay, so I guess not really a backstory, but here's my like random all over the place thought pattern for this. I was a few years ago looking for something fun, and I was like, I wonder what the word penis translates into with other languages. And so Schwanz, without the E, or the I on the end, Schwanzi. Schwanz in Yiddish means penis or low-life scumbag. And I was like, that's fucking hilarious. Let's make it cute by tossing an I on the end. Schwanzi, that's great. So it's kind of like, it's got the whole like, haha, penis, low-life scumbag, but also it's cute sounding and no one knows any better. So
I love that. I did not know that at all.
also, apparently, I can't find it again, but I remember like researching it before I was like, I'll commit to this username. It's funny. Apparently, Schwanz, I don't know if it's Yiddish or in something else, but like at one point in history, for a very short time, was used as like a way to describe a very like fancy, condescending, rich gay man. And I was like, absolutely, let's go.
That's like a dandy or like a macaroni.
Yes. So I was
Wow.
like, fuck yeah, let's go. Schwanzi, done.
I love that.
Yep.
Drew, what about you?
Oh, Immunogoblin?
Yes.
That one, oh my god. So that was high school. It was a biology class, and I was not paying attention because I'm an asshole sometimes. And the teacher kept on talking about immunoglobulins. And
Oh yeah.
it just kept on talking about that. And then when I got a test on it, I just saw that and was like, immunoglobulin? What? What the fuck are immunoglobulins? And I realized like I'm not reading this right. And then I drew little immunoglobulins on the page because I was like, this is adorable. I love that. And so that's how immunoglobulin was started. It was just me misunderstanding a word that the professor was saying or teacher was saying.
As a lover of goblins, I love that.
Yeah, the username I use the most often is "That's So Metal." Until recently, Michelle read it as "That's Some Tall." So I guess it's the other way.
We got all
You would
those
say it.
letter, capital, lowercase mixtures and the numbers in there.
It's got
yeah.
like a 0 and a 3. Like it's not that hard.
Speak for yourself.
That happened because I think it was my first year of college. I overheard somebody, instead of saying, "Oh my God, that's so meta," they just kept saying, "That's so metal." And like everybody thought it was so funny. And I didn't really think it was that funny. But when it came time to making a username, I guess, not long after that, I was like, oh,
Divine
I like it when
inspiration.
things are metal. Yes, insight.
Insight.
And there you go.
But what's become very cool about it is that within the last few years, so that was about, it was over 10 years ago, I overheard her. I bumped into her on like a train platform at my university. And I was like, oh my God, do you remember me? Blah, blah, blah. By the way, I've been quoting you as my username for the last 10 years.
Yes.
And she was deeply honored, I would like to think. Yeah.
Oh, you would like to think? you just
told
tacked
her.
that on real quietly there at the end.
Yeah, I want to imagine. But we have some other user submissions. And they're very interesting. So Muggle Watcher, our OG patron and our best friend probably ever, finally explained his username. And I always thought it was like some kind of way of talking about lurking or something like that. But it's actually because when the Harry Potter books came out, people used to tell him that he looked like the illustrations, like the real, like original Harry Potter. So that's where Muggle Watcher came from.
Filthy muggle.
Geist, I loved this because I learned something new. Geist explained their username, and part of it came from what I think is an oblique reference to the Insane Clown Posse. But they looked up the German word for insane, which is Geisteskrank, or spirit ill, or literally ghost is sick.
Oh, yeah.
And
Or
then
Krank. Krankenwagen. Like, that's ambulance.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Krank, yeah. Oh, shit.
So spirit sick, I guess, or ghost sick, being the D&D character. I'm reading this all out of order. Geist had a female D&D character named Minerva. And so put together, Minerva Geisteskrank, like shortened, was Mini Geist. And that's where Mini Geist came from. Cake Mastermind. Well, I think it's a little self-explanatory. Loves cake and wanted to increase, in his own words, lacks character. So it needed to be paired with something to bring out the flavor, like pairing sweet chocolate with tangy raspberry. Mastermind seems to hit the spot just right.
Yeah, it's a good fun play on words.
Mastermind.
So thank you, everybody, for answering our questions of the week. If you would like to answer, you can follow along on Twitter, or sometimes we're good about putting it on Instagram, but also always in our Discord. So come hang out, especially because Twitter is sorely broken right now. So what order do we want to go in this week?
Do you want to split up? Wait, are we all like psychological things or?
No, mine, if anything, is a little bit of language and a little bit of history. It's very
Mine's a
nerdy.
test.
Yours is a test. How,
And yours is a
how nerdy
concept.
Mine is a concept. We're back, baby.
Okay. So yeah, would it make sense to do Drew's as like what would you call it? Like background, and then Jean as is like, how related are your two topics? I'm wondering if it makes sense to put them next to each other.
You could argue there's perception in mine, but like not to the level that Drew's gonna go with. I'm talking about animals in mine,
Yeah.
not
Okay.
people. Because people are stupid. Not the people listening, though. They're amazing.
No, not you. Okay. You want to do like a psychology sandwich?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Works for me.
Wait,
Okay.
what order is that then?
That would be Drew, me, you. Unless you want to
Ready?
unless you want to reverse it. I don't know.
I'm so ready to talk about perception.
Go
Okay,
ahead, go
okay.
ahead.
I'm like so
Perception
ready.
is a good opening, broad category, like topic. So yeah, it's a good one.
What is perception?
What is perception? Well, first I wanted to start off by saying I started on a concept. And, I get to define my topic again and just nerd out about something that I find uber cool. So I'm happy. I'm very happy right now. So perception, I think we're all a little bit inherently aware of what perception is. Because just to even hear me say the word perception, you are literally perceiving what I'm saying and interpreting it as a word or a concept. So I say perception, you have an idea of what it might be. And that's you literally perceiving me saying, I don't know, it's kind of getting
that
meta.
makes sense.
Yeah, you got it.
So let me clarify a little bit. So perception specifically is the organization, identification, and interpretation of sensory information so as to understand the presented information or environment. So that's very hand wavy and kind of like, ooh. So I wanted to break it down a little further, just to hopefully clarify it a little bit. Is that perception is basically taking in all of the information from your five senses, and then your brain interprets that information and decides what to do about that said information. Like your ears are taking in the sound waves information that I'm outputting and interpreting those sound waves as words, and in the greater context, a statement. So that's kind of what perception is just like you taking in your environment or a specific target and saying what's happening here. I'm sure a few people are like, duh, you're talking to me like I live in Stupid Town, but I just really wanted to get everyone on the same page about the concept that I find pretty hand-wavy. So let's talk about what perception actually involves. So perception involves signals that go through the nervous system, which take in physical or chemical stimulations of the sensory system. So basically, you have your nervous system, and your nervous system is taking in your sensory systems, and that's all going to the perception systems, which is your brain bits. And I really didn't want to get too bogged down in the nervous system because it's super rad, but I just think it's way too complex for us to just like talk about in like 30 seconds.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point anyway. But the extremely neat part about perception is that it is not only about passive reception of signals, it is specifically shaped by the recipient's learning, memory, expectations, and even attention. So if you think about what I like to think about is a car alarm. If you hear it going off for a very long time, all of a sudden you stop perceiving it. You start tuning it out a little bit. And that's where attention really comes in, is that you're literally tuning something out and saying, oh, well, that's not important to me. And your brain just kind of switches off and like turns the volume down on it until the point where you basically don't even hear it. So that's all like,
or like
go on.
Annoying birds in the morning. Fuck
Yeah.
those things.
Oh my God. You can't say that. There's birds listening right now. So what you're saying, Drew, is that we can choose what we want to perceive. It's not always a passive process.
So there's a lot of debate about that.
Okay.
There's people who say that it's a passive process. People say it's an active process. I kind of sit in the middle and say that it's kind of like breathing, where you can think about it and, you can control your breathing.
Yes.
You can also control your perception, but like normally you can just like passively perceive things if you just let it happen.
Yeah, that's a really great analogy.
Yeah. Do you want to focus on it, or do you want to let it passively go by?
Just like go by.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And then I just think perception is an extremely complex function of the nervous system, but perception is performed outside the conscious awareness, which is just like completely nuts to me that we just like subconsciously just like pull it in. I mean, this is kind of believing that it's a passive process, but I mean, we don't really have to put effort into perceiving our environment. We just kind of do it. It's like constantly just happening.
Wait, Drew,
Yes.
Are you going to go into our perception of reality?
I really wanted to.
I know that's super complex and philosophical.
That's so philosophical. I really wanted to keep it more towards the science side of perception.
Yeah. That's fair.
But perception of reality, I fucking love that.
Is this a simulation?
Exactly.
I was going to ask if perception is kind of, I I don't want to say against, but it's almost like it's at odds when like you're meditating. So coming back to the breathing example, if you told me to hold my breath, I could stop breathing on like focused. So when you meditate and you're trying to like clear your mind, are you forcing yourself to stop perceiving? But then again, you can have brilliant insights or kind of eureka moments or just grand realizations when you do keep your mind silent. So is it possible to stop perceiving?
I don't know if it's possible to stop perceiving,
It's
but we'll kind of get into
dying.
this. Yeah, I guess that. I mean, yeah, that's a yeah. I mean, a lot of things end when you die.
The greatest stopper of all.
Yeah, I would say that it's. I don't know if it's. I would say it's impossible to stop perceiving things, but I would say that what you can do is you can turn everything down. Like you can turn all your attention down so that everything you are perceiving is basically just being ignored by your brain. So I think that's something you could do if you are very, very good at meditation. But I know I'm terrible at it, and like, you know, thoughts are still going on, and you know, things around me are still distracting me. So I would say that to me it's very difficult. But I think you not couldn't. I don't want to say you could turn everything off, but I think you could turn a lot of it off.
Yeah, or like you said, I think it was very fair to say you could turn it down.
Yeah, you turn it down. I think that a lot of this is just literally turning things down.
Yeah.
So one very interesting thing that is brought up by the article is that senses are typically viewed as passive receptors, which is like, you know, that's pretty cool in itself. But when you look at visual illusions or ambiguous images, like the ones I've posted in Discord that are weird, you know, the ones that like have two faces in them and you see one thing, typically you see one face or whatever, and that's like, oh, it's your personality, you know those ones.
Mm-hmm.
Like those crosswords that have a million words in them, and it's like the first 3 words you see are going to describe your year.
Describe you. Sure.
And then it's always like death, sex, murder.
But basically, those ambiguous images demonstrate that your perceptual systems are actively and preconsciously attempting to make sense of inputs. And so even before your brain, like even before you think about looking at those images, your brain is already trying to piece together what's in those images. And that's why they're so cool to us, is because, like, you know, your brain is kind of immediately doing something and it's like, wait, no, I have to think about this and look at this a little bit more. So it's kind of really cool that it has a preconscious attempt to make sense of the input. Oh
my God, this is a little off topic, but I just recently read something where, you know how like you think you're in control of everything with your brain process. Apparently, your brain, before you even think and begin to process, has already made a decision half the time, and you just like involuntarily follow it.
Oh,
as if your brain is like a separate entity from you, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I was like,
that's crazy.
No, reality isn't real.
So your brain makes the decision, but the rest of the thought process is connecting the dots.
More or less, yeah. You're just like following up on what your brain instantaneously went to.
Yeah.
Before you think you consciously made that decision yourself.
To me, that's intuition, when you have like a gut sense about something and whether or not, you know, your brain has pieced together why. It's just kind of like the determination, and then the supporting evidence follows.
Oh, I love this shit. Sorry, keep going.
No, it's fine. No, it's so cool. I think it's really, that kind of hurt me. I was like, my brain is like, what the fuck?
Yeah, so actually, speaking of pain, the picture that you posted in the Discord, just to describe it really quickly, at a glance, your immediate conclusion is that's an elephant. But when you look closely, the spaces between the elephant's legs are illustrations of elephant's legs. So it's your brain, just so everybody who isn't looking at it right now can see it. Also probably a good time to mention that all of our visual aids I put for the patrons on our Patreon. So if you don't want to sift through Twitter and you don't want to sift through Discord, it'll be there with the episode all packaged up neatly on our Patreon. Nice. But in this case, just one of those little packages. Yeah, like a little love note in your lunch. Love you. Have a good day at school.
Love you. Great.
Here's an elephant with no legs.
Enjoy.
The elephant has, like, you look at it and you're like, that's an elephant. And then the more that you look at the details, you're like, that actually doesn't make sense, as I'm trying to really piece out the details
the individual.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I actually think sometimes you'll see brain teasers on the internet that are like the first and last letter of a word are correct and people scramble up the middle words and you can still read the sentence.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the same thing? Like your brain is perceiving without actually following through the cause and effect?
I think it's funny that you say cause and effect, but I think what's happening is it's literally your brain just kind of. I think you're right. It's your brain literally perceiving the beginning and end of that and saying and just filling in the rest, because we're going to talk about how wild your brain is a little bit, but
okay.
your brain's fucking wild.
Okay.
But as I said, there's a big debate as to if perception is an active process.
Oh, right.
And some believe that it's actually like based off of hypothesis testing, like not specifically hypothesis testing, but like the if then statements that we made when we were little kids, when we first learned the scientific method. It's kind of like, if I see these things together, that means that it's this. It's like if then sort of statements. And that's a very active process. And some people believe that that's kind of how your brain works. When it comes to perception. And then others say that real sensory information is quote unquote rich enough to make this active process unnecessary, where rich in this statement basically means that it has enough information for it so that you don't have to process it at all. It's literally your brain just goes, oh, okay, I get what's here. And that's just from sensory information. And so people believe it might not be an active process. It could be an active process. And as I said, I kind of sit somewhere in the middle of that.
Wait. You know what this is reminding me of? Remember in middle school or maybe even elementary school for Halloween, they'd blindfold you, make you put your hands into a bowl of peeled grapes.
Yeah.
Those are
Eyeballs. Oh.
Because your brain's like, oh, I know what this categorically is based on like the sense of touch and like shape and whatnot. But you're wrong, brain, you stupid piece of shit. Sorry.
Well, actually,
right.
we'll talk about why your brain actually does that a little bit, because there's a few theories on it. But what I wanted to talk about now is that the really cool part about the perceptive systems that I've been talking about is that it enables us to see the world around us as stable, even though our sensory information we receive from our senses is typically incomplete or rapidly varying. Like if we like to think about peripheral vision, which is another fucking nuts topic. I would love to talk about peripheral vision, but it's your brain is just kind of making shit up based on what it sees. It's just like you have your central vision and then your brain is just making up what's around it. And so that's kind of your perception is based off of your brain just kind of piecing together all this information you get from your eyes. And then your brain just goes, okay, I'll make up the rest. And then you have your peripheral vision. Yeah. So that's just like completely nuts to me that we have this just ability to do this. And I'm sure we'll at some point do a segment about it, but that's just wild to me. And then another very interesting thing that the article brings up is that our brains are structured in a modular way, in that different areas process different things, or different kind of sensory information. And these sections, which literally can be mapped across a brain surface, are interconnected and influence each other through how we perceive things. For example, we have taste and smell being strongly linked, which is why you hold your nose when you don't want to taste something, or you give your big old favorite meal a big old whiff right before you eat it. Ew. Exactly.
Activate those olfactory nerves. Yes.
But that's enough about the brain.
It's really, I mean, I wish that it was the whole episode because I want to keep thinking about it.
Wait, is it over? Is it over? Are we done?
Yeah, that's it.
No,
that's it.
That's
all I got.
More. Okay.
You wanted more perception?
I wanted more perception.
I'm sorry.
Okay. I know we got to keep it kind of short.
We got to keep it moving.
All right. Next time.
Now for something completely different. Minced oaths. Have you guys ever like watched a movie or like an older movie that's like, don't mince words with me? Like they say
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So like in that kind of context, it means like say what you mean or don't waste my time.
Oh yeah, get to the point.
Yeah, exactly. A minced oath is actually a category of words or phrases that disguise or serve as an alternative for what they truly mean. So I'm going to give you an example and you're going to be like, oh, fuck. All right. Have you ever said gosh instead of God?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Have you ever said darn instead of damn?
Yes.
Yeah.
All of these are minced oaths. Have you ever said geez instead of Jesus?
Yep.
Jesus.
That's a minced oath. Let me also, quick sidebar. Wikipedia needs to change the way that they spell G's because I very much
With a
almost
G?
came to you guys and said, hey, jizz is another word for Jesus.
Wow.
Only the facts here on the show. Another one that I meant to say also is heck instead of hell. All of these, darn, heck, geez, and hell. These are minced oaths. And I wanted to talk about the history of some of these minced oaths and why we say them. But I wanted to ask you guys first, have you ever had a situation where, I don't know, like you're at the diner or whatever, and you're like chatting with your friends, and then all of a sudden up over the booth, you see that there's like a kid standing up and you're like, oh, I've been cursing this whole time. I gotta change.
Yeah.
I guess. I'm kind of like, what the fuck are you staring at, you little shit?
Oh my god.
I don't know about you, but I change the way I talk.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
When I like, what are some common replacements you guys will use instead of curse words? Maybe even like around your coworkers. Like there have been plenty of times where I've like fucked up at work and I go, oh, shoot.
Yeah. I use
often
frickin' a lot.
frickin'.
That's
Yeah,
a good
I'll-
one.
I'll say F this, F that instead of actually using the word fuck sometimes.
F. That's another very common one. All of these are minced oaths.
Yeah.
Oath being like, damn it to hell, like, you know, an oath of like
An oath. A declaration.
Yeah, minced declarations is probably better. All right, so the most common ones that I already talked about, actually, I thought for sure these were going to come from like medieval times or something like that when it was like extremely blasphemous. Gosh, and actually darn, were first recorded in the late 1700s.
Wow. Okay.
Wait, is
Which I found
dang one of them as well? Like instead of darn, you could say dang.
I didn't look into the history of dang. I don't
Okay.
know if that would be any older, but I was even more shocked to hear that heck is from 1865.
Bad, not
Wow.
bad.
And before I get really like underwhelming about it, I was interested in digging into like why. Why is it that these things that are just so common in our language, why did they come about in the 1700s or as recently as that? What changed? And one of the sources I found that was actually a blog from one of the dictionaries, I don't even remember, I think it was Britannica or something, some dictionary blog, was talking about how there was kind of a cultural shift happening in Britain and in the American colonies at that time that was kind of transitioning into what we now look back on as like the really uptight Victorian era. But just preceding that, it was a little bit more loose and blasphemous. So these minced oaths or these euphemisms kind of came in at a time that society was becoming more and more proper, and they didn't want to be actually saying God damn it or damn it to hell or fuck you. So it was a cultural shift into being proper and polite in society. So we're going to play a game. We're going to play a reverse engineering game. I'm going to give you a minced oath and you have to tell me what we are avoiding saying.
What we're not saying.
Okay.
So we have to be the blasphemous ones.
Yeah, you guys are going to blaspheme.
Right up my alley. I love to blaspheme.
Let's start with an easy one. Judas Priest.
Jesus Christ.
There you go. Ding, ding, ding.
Hey.
Jesus Christ. That's where Judas Priest comes from.
Oh.
Let's go.
This one's tough. Bloody or blooming?
Fucking.
No.
No? Damn.
Goddamn.
No. Believe it or not, bloody comes from by Our Lady, referring to Mary.
What?
Oh wow. Okay.
Get the fuck out of here.
For real. And I never
get
realized.
the F out of here.
I never realized that. Like, I think Australians kind of will typically say bloomin', like more
Bloomin'.
bloody, but they come from the same thing. They both mean by Our Lady.
Bloody is more like UK, right? Like
Yeah.
you hear it in Harry Potter all the time. That's bloody brilliant.
Yeah, or like bloody hell. Like I hear that
Bloody
in
hell.
Python
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
Bloody hell. By Our Lady.
Wow.
All right, this one's a tough one because it's several degrees removed. Have you ever heard the old-timey phrase, gadzooks?
Gadzooks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's to get
Goddamn,
around
right?
Almost. It's got
Oh.
God in it.
Huh. What else is there other than goddamn? Goddamn it?
No, I
Or
find this one particularly blasphemous, actually.
Go for it.
It's Gadzooks means God's hooks, which is a slang way of referring to the nails that held up Jesus.
Oh, shit. Wait, so you're saying back in the day, people were saying God's hooks?
Yes.
Holy shit.
Wow.
Or that's what they wanted to refer to. So Gadzooks to me is like such a 50s kind of like, gee whiz, like
Yeah.
Gadzooks. And
Gadzooks.
they're literally like,
Fuck.
Jesus' fucking nails. And I saved my favorite for last. This one is impossible.
We'll see about that.
Poppycock.
Poppycock. I love poppycock. I sometimes still say it.
Poppycock. Did you even know that was? I always thought that was just a nonsense word.
I thought, yeah, me too.
Bullshit. Poppycock is bullshit.
Oh, you are not far off. Actually, I would give you the
Horse
point
shit?
for that. Well, Drew, do you want to give it
Let's
guess?
see. Poppycock. So bullshit is close.
Yeah.
Does it have anything to do with a peacock?
No, I totally thought
Okay,
so.
okay.
No.
I have zero idea. I've got zero idea.
It actually comes from the phrase pappy cack, which I guess
Okay.
I'm mispronouncing. It's Dutch for soft poop.
Diarrhea.
Yes, basically. Love that.
So, believe it or not, even though these phrases, which are hilarious in themselves, even though they were invented to get around saying bad words, sometimes even the phrases themselves were still considered offensive. So, for example, if I were in court or something, I probably wouldn't want to be cursing in front of the judge. And I would probably, even just in the interest of being proper, I probably still wouldn't even say things like heck. Even though heck isn't really offensive, it's a little
Dude.
bit more...
Sorry, anecdotal, real quick. Second grade, I said in class, like in a private conversation with friends, near my teacher, I said, "What the heck?" And she pulled me aside immediately and was like, "You don't say that." And I was like traumatized. And everyone was saying heck, because it's like, it's the safe way to say hell, or like, what the hell? Even though hell isn't even really that bad of a word. But like, she pulled me aside, and literally for like a year or two after that, anytime anyone said heck, I was like, "You can't say that. You cannot say that."
I'll tell you, I wasn't allowed to say fart.
Oh no! That's not
My
even, that's
mom-
not
My mom told me it was a bad word. I had to say toot.
Oh, toot. I like toot more
Oh,
anyway.
toot's better.
And I also corrected my friends. I'd be like, don't say fart.
Yes.
You're supposed to say toot.
Because it's like, they, like, just being called out on it is low-key traumatizing.
It is. Because you don't want to, you weren't trying to do anything wrong, and you weren't
Right.
saying HE double hockey
Yeah.
six. Like, you were saying heck.
Oh, heck. Whoa.
Ooh. But I'm glad that you brought up that anecdotal story, because as recently as 1941, a judge held somebody or threatened to hold somebody in contempt of court for saying darn.
What the fuck?
Really? Really? That's something.
I think darn isn't nearly as bad as heck.
None of them are bad. You could even say damn, like, oh, whatever. That's not like a hard curse word or whatever. Damn.
Well, here was my favorite example of such, disagreement. In 1550, it was considered similarly blasphemous to say Saint Chicken.
Saint Chicken. What?
People would replace like by Saint Chicken, like to say, and people still found it blasphemous.
So dumb. I hate people.
Saint Chicken. Jeez.
Saint Chicken. But yeah, that was my topic. I know it was kind of a short one today. I guess maybe even as a bonus, I went down several different rabbit holes to collect these examples, and I found out a dark secret of one of our childhood rhymes that also has one in it.
Ooh, okay.
Have you ever done eeny, meeny, miny, mo?
Yeah.
Catch a tiger by the toe.
No toe.
Right.
If he hollers, let him go.
Is it hollers?
No, it's
Oh.
tiger.
What? Wait a minute. What is tiger
Oh, is
for?
that? Oh.
Tiger used to be the N-word.
I knew it. I knew it. Why?
I don't know. And you know what's fucked is that I actually went down, I almost made this my topic, was the history of that childhood rhyme. Nobody
Yeah.
knows where it came from. And it is many, many hundreds of years old, no matter like what sort of route you take. It's a really old rhyme and it has fascinating different realizations of it that are in many different languages. And for some reason, recently, as in the last couple hundred years, and in the Americas, it was changed to be so offensive. It did not originate that way. It was made that way and then changed back to being less offensive.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well,
Yeah.
back to I hate people.
Yeah, there you go.
Gadzooks.
Gadzooks.
Poppycock. Oh my god.
Yep, thanks for my pee-pee poo-poo moment. Let's go back to psychology.
Yay.
Yeah. My turn. So, if you recall, I did the mirror test, also known as mirror self-recognition and the red spot technique. Ooh, where does the red spot come into play? We'll get to that. So I'm going to refer to it as the MSR, because I'm not going to say mirror recognition, self-recognition technique over and over and over and over and over again, because that's going to drive me insane. So the MSR, right? It's a behavioral experiment developed in 1970 by a person named Gordon Gallup Jr., and he used it to determine if animals have the capacity for visual self-recognition. And this is going to be important throughout, because you have to remember this is just visual. He was inspired by, guess who? Who's a big
Freud.
No. Animal Man.
Steve Irwin.
Evolutions. No.
Oh, Darwin.
Yeah, it's Charles Darwin.
I was thinking Steve Irwin too, as soon as you said Animal Man.
You know what? To be fair, 1970, I guess. Yeah.
Who else is the animal man?
Yeah.
Charles Darwin.
I guess Darwin.
The original Animal Man.
Yeah.
All right, well, there's a record of Charles Darwin visiting the London Zoo in 1838, in which he observed an orangutan gazing at herself in a mirror, and he wondered, what is she thinking when she sees her own reflection?
Yeah,
And so Mr. Gordon Gallup Jr. was like, I need to experiment. So real quick, before we get into like a deep dive of Gordon Gallup Jr.'s experiment, the classic MSR in a nutshell. Animals are anesthetized, which just means like they get put like to sleep temporarily with anesthetics, marked with a red dot on a part of their body they normally cannot see without a reflection. So let's say like forehead. I'm pretty sure most animals can't see their own forehead normally. And then they're given access to a mirror once they are recovered from anesthesia. If the animal touches or investigates the mark while looking in the mirror, this is seen as an indication that it perceives the reflection as an image of itself rather than another animal, and therefore has the ability to self-recognize.
Uh-huh.
So this is the mirror test, or MSR, in a nutshell. But we're going to go into a deeper look of how Gordon Gallup Jr. started the whole thing. So again, in 1970, he first worked with 2 male and 2 female pre-adolescent chimpanzees, which, as you may or may not know, I hate chimpanzees. I think they're crazy animals. One of the few animals where I'm like, you're awful, I don't like you.
Oh my God.
And none of these 4 chimps have ever seen a mirror before, presumably. Each chimp was isolated for 2 days on its own. And it didn't say why, but I'm assuming it's to like desensitize to everything. So it's not like, getting all rowdy from the other chimps or like getting too much interaction. So he wanted like a clean slate for them.
You're so anti-chimp. You're like, just clear
I
its
hate them.
thoughts. It's
I hate
dirty
them.
thoughts.
They've ripped people's faces off of their facial skeletons before, and they are one of the few mammals, aside from humans, that literally have tribal warfare and murder each other for like fun and for all that shit. Chimps are insane, and I hate them.
Advanced. Oh my God.
That sounds pretty advanced.
Yeah, like, that's really interesting. I want to hear about that.
Fuck off.
Change your topic now.
Yeah, why are we fucking around with red dots?
You can talk about chimp tribal warfare in the future. I refuse. Beyond just pointing out how it makes them evil creatures, too similar to people. Anyway, after being isolated for 2 days, he put a large mirror in each room for 80 hours, which translates to about like 3.5 days, to see how they interacted with them. This is before any red dots or anything. At first, the chimpanzees made threatening gestures at their own images, which isn't surprising, really, because they're like, what the fuck? And this was presumably because they saw the reflections as a threat. I'm sure if you were just isolated for 2 days and then suddenly you saw someone out of nowhere, you'd be like, ah!
Yeah.
So that happened. But then soon after, like after they kind of had time to calm down and get used to it, the chimps use the reflections for self-directed response behaviors. And this is basically the ability to regulate and adapt one's behavior in response to a given situation in their environment to achieve personal chosen goals. So like you're basically like, oh, this is interesting. I'm going to respond to it in a unique way that wasn't happening before.
So does that mean like when you pass by a mirror and you suddenly like change your posture, for example?
Yes, that is a good example of it, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So some examples of these 4 chimps and what they did was they would start grooming parts of their bodies that they previously did not recognize without the mirror. So they'd be like, oh, wait, look at that. And so they'd like reach over there and give it a scratch. Yeah. They'd pick their noses, which I'm like, when I read that, I was like, do chimps normally not pick their noses? But I guess they were like literally observing themselves picking their noses, which was to them amusing. Along similar lines, they would start making funny faces at themselves, like faces they were not making before without a mirror.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yes, this is where it gets interesting. And then they would also blow like spit bubbles at their own reflections, which is kind of cute. We'll give them that. So then Gallup was like, wait a minute, this is fascinating. We got to build on top of this. Later, he would manipulate the chimp's appearance and observe their reactions in the mirror. So this kind of goes back to the classic MSR test that we use today now. So he would anesthetize them, mark their entire brow ridge with virtually non-olfactory and non-tactile, which just means like undetectable via touch and smell. Backwards, I said those backwards, but you know, same thing, undetectable. You wouldn't know you wouldn't know it's there unless you had a mirror. It was red dye.
So you Sharpied a unibrow on them?
Basically, a red unibrow, yes. And then,
guys, it's for science.
Science for science. And then he would let them regain consciousness in the rooms without a mirror. Oh, and by the way, they anesthetize them so that like they don't know when they wake up that something has been done to them.
Right.
And they can't sense it. Otherwise, it would taint the experiment because they'd be like, you definitely put something on my forehead. Yeah. I felt that.
Yeah, or if they watched you bring the mirror in,
right,
they could learn like by watching the motion of the mirror.
Yes. Yeah. So these are legit experiments. He did well. So for the first 30 minutes after they woke up, without a mirror, he would record how many times they spontaneously touched their brow ridge where the dye was located, just to see if they were aware of it. And they really weren't. I mean, they would touch occasionally, but it was kind of like spontaneous and non-correlated, he thought. Then he reintroduced the mirror after 30 minutes and let them look at themselves and recorded the frequency of touching again. Touching increased between 4 to 10 times with the mirror present per individual chimp.
Oh, shit.
Or, up to 4 to 10 times more.
But that must mean that the chimps have an idea of what they normally look like for them to know that there was something different.
Well, I think this is after they got used to like understood that the mirror was reflecting them, and now that there was something red on them, they were like, "Holy shit, that's me!" And now there's something different about me.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. Is that like for them to know that something is different about them?
Yeah.
They have to have like an idea of self, of like, this is what I normally look like, and
right.
now I look different than normal.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And on top of that, on top of touching their red mark way more than before, some would turn around and inspect the mark from new positions to get a better view of it. And others would actively touch or rub it directly while looking at the reflection. So they'd be like, what the hell is this? Rub.
Get this off of me.
Yeah, so really cool. So according to Gallup, this showed strong evidence that chimpanzees were capable of self-recognition. However, interestingly, and it wasn't really explained why this happened. I mean, I guess we can infer later on, but when Gallup later conducted a follow-up study that was very similar with 2 new chimps, they did not show any mark-directed behavior or an increase in awareness with the mirror present. So this suggests that while a certain species may have a general aptitude for self-recognition with enough exposure, it is still based on a per-individual basis along with varied contributing factors weighing in on how they recognize. Yeah. So that's kind of like his experiment in a nutshell. Well, not in a nutshell. I already did the nutshell, but his experiment more like, delved into like how he got to where he was. So real quick, I'm going to go over the stages of passing the MSR, especially for these days. So when you're facing a mirror, or an animal is facing a mirror, animals are seen as self-recognizing if they progress through 4 stages. And these are social responses, which you'll typically see aggression early on, especially if it's like a primate or something. Vocalization, expected forms of communication based on species. So some will like try to like start grooming or something like that, or like some will make postures and whatnot. Then you'll have physical inspection, which would like be like looking behind the mirror. And this I thought was really interesting. Are you guys familiar with Jean Piaget's object permanence, the concept of it? He was a child psychologist.
The concept, yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically like you understand that items and people still exist even though you don't always are directly looking at them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like, say like it's a chimp, they'd like go around the mirror and be like, wait a minute, like what's going on here? So like physical inspection of the mirror and how it interacts. The next one would be repetitive mirror testing behavior. And this is where like they really start to be like, okay, something's happening here and somehow I'm controlling it. So like going in out of view, moving around to see what happens, observing and contemplating different parts of your own reflection. And attempting to like interact with the reflection. So like you'd see some, like I actually posted in Bibness, there's a little chimpanzee monkey, or not chimpanzee, chimpanzee baby, and it's like poking at the mirror at itself. So that would be repetitive mirror testing behavior. And then finally, realization of like seeing themselves. Like they're like, oh, that's me. Like it finally happens where it clicks sort of, they're like, that's me, I self-recognize. Mm-hmm. So those are the 4 stages to pass the test. Those 4: social responses, physical inspection, repetitive mirror testing behavior, and the final realization of seeing self. There are very few species who have convincingly passed the MSR. Very few.
I was going to ask how many. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have the number here, but I have like pretty much like the big ones in front of me. Okay. So certain primates, which include bonobos, which are basically smarter chimpanzees that aren't violent assholes.
Gene, bonobo. They have such drama.
They're cute.
I'm fascinated by them. And did you know that the alpha male, when he's bested, gets exiled?
Oh, poor alpha male.
Yeah, he has to go alone in like the apology corner for the rest of his life.
See, bonobos I would love to do a topic on, but chimps, they can get fucked.
I watched a documentary that talked about this. Oh my God. Please, everybody who's listening to this, look up bonobo documentaries. Oh my God, their drama is fascinating.
Have you heard the meme, you boosted bonobo? It's to like basically like, you idiot, because you're like basically an ape.
Oh my God. Like they'll get jealous of each other. Like,
yeah, they're so cool. And actually they're closer to us in DNA than chimps are, from what I understand. Yeah.
I believe it. They've got Real Housewives shit going on.
Yeah. So other primates include Bornean orangutans, which I love orangs. They're so cute. Again, chimps. Gibbons and Western gorillas. Although the Western gorilla one might be kind of like on the fence because they get very aggressive and territorial. And it's hard to judge whether they're self-recognizing or if they're just like acting weird in front of a mirror.
But like... Was it silverbacks? Which ones are the ones who can learn sign language?
I believe Coco was a Western gorilla.
Okay, it was a Western... Because I actually went down a rabbit hole not long ago about Coco and like teaching chimps sign language. Like she's a chimp. No, gorilla.
Coco was a gorilla. Yeah.
Yeah, teaching gorillas sign language. And it's not just Coco who knows how to speak, actually. No. There's like a foundation of, that does this kind of research. And to me, at least, this is not scientific, but... to speak or to have those kind of memories or, it does kind of refer to a knowledge of the self, to speak about the self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to end with something that's going to be very philosophical. That's kind of up this alley where you're going to be like, wait a minute. Okay. So those are our primates that have like very convincingly passed the test. There's also, they did it on Asian elephants. They tested it on 3 and only one of them passed the test. The other 2 were like, meh, I don't, whatever. Pigs, apparently pigs. Yeah, pigs are so smart. It's crazy. They're like basically equivalent to dogs. Dolphins, orcas, like cetaceans. The Eurasian magpie, which is a type of like, it's not a crow, but like it's in that family. Pigeons with training, like on their own, they're kind of like, what? But like you can train them to self-recognize in a mirror.
Damn.
And then interestingly, and I find this to be like, not like mind-blowing, but like it should be mind-blowing for most people because they think fish are fucking stupid. Manta rays and cleaner wrasse. Do you know what cleaner wrasse are?
No.
Well, there's a picture in Bibness right now. We can post it later on in Patreon.
Oh my God. This little fucking thing.
It's a little fucking fish. And it's these things, I don't know if you ever watched nature documentaries for like oceans and whatnot. They're the little ones that like go into like big fish's mouths and they clean out stuff from their teeth and they peck off little parasites. They're just like the cleaning crew of the ocean. The little cleaner wrasse. And they're
They
really
can recognize
cute.
themselves.
Oh my God. Yeah. So I wrote a whole little blurb about how I'm like, this is crazy because they're fish. And most people are like, fish are fucking dumb. All they do is swim around and eat things. They're only good for eating. They don't even feel pain or anything. These fucking things are on par with us in looking in a mirror. And let me tell you why. Here's the experiment that like determined that they are 100% self-recognizing in a mirror. Scientists or researchers would inject a tiny bit of like brown dye under the fish's throat, like very superficially. Like they would, and they would be anesthetized, by the way, so they had no idea. Like they made sure that they wouldn't feel it. Without a mirror, they had no idea. If this fish did not see its own reflection, it was unaware of the mark and went about its usual activity. Seeing a mark on its throat in the mirror, in the reflection, elicited an immediate attempt to try to remove it on the substrate of the aquarium.
Whoa!
Then it would go back to the mirror and see if it was still there. If it managed to get it off, it was fine. If not, it would immediately go back and be like, get the fuck off of me.
Wow!
They cross-tested this with other fish, and so seeing another fish with that mark on their throat did not elicit the scraping action of its own. Because they were like, well, maybe like if they see another fish with it, they'll be like, oh, that's me. I got to do it. No, they're like, that's not me. I know that's not me. So
yeah,
they would
we
just
don't
go about
all
their business.
look the ssame.
Right.
Fuck, that is so convincing.
Isn't that and it's a little fucking fish. So
That's
in
wild.
Yeah, in essence, this is like a human walking by a mirror and be like, oh my God, there's a smudge on my face. What the fuck?
But like what kind of blows my mind is like in nature, when would these fish ever have the opportunity to see themselves? Like why would they have developed that?
Exactly.
Why?
And this is what they're still trying to figure out, and it's bizarre, but like the fact that they know and they're just like little fish that are like, I'm gonna clean you. That's my job in the ocean is crazy.
I can't figure out how a manta ray would even see its entire body. Coming back to that.
They had to modify the experiment. I didn't go super into it because I was like, I'm only going to talk about the one fish, and it's going to be the smaller one because people associate small with stupid. And I'm like, that fish is the size of your finger, and it's like basically able to recognize itself, just like you are. I know I did. I saw that the manta ray one was slightly modified because they are huge and awkward.
Yeah,
but
like
they showed signs of self-recognition in that experiment. We can look into it later, but yeah, two of the confirmed species in the entire world of the very few are fucking fish.
I'm surprised dogs and cats aren't on that list.
I'll kind of get into that in a second.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I just wanted to do like a little soapbox side note thing where it's like there's continuous new research showing that like fish are really intelligent, curious, and social creatures. So fuck everyone who's like, they're just dumb animals who deserve to be eaten en masse. Okay.
I love fish.
So we'll wrap up with criticisms, which I'll mention cats and dogs in. Criticisms of the MSR. And these are all very valid and interesting in their own right. So some authors and researchers suggest that animals in the MSR tests may perceive their reflection as a separate entity altogether from themselves, which they can somehow control through their own movements, making them believe that there's some omnipotent, like, strong-willed being that can be like,
or they're a
I have
sociopath.
dominion over
I'm
you.
a puppet master.
Yes. So when the reflection has a mark, the animal may attempt to alert the entity in the mirror of its presence and attempt to help remove it. So it's not actually seeing itself and being like, I gotta get that off. It's like, look, there's something on your forehead, get it off.
Do this.
Yes. So that's one criticism. Apparently the MSR, well, not apparently, it's definitely, the MSR is prone to false negative findings since it is strictly based on physical and visual stimuli. And this means like, this basically comes down to, there's more than like visual and stimuli senses, like, or visual and physical senses, right? Like there's scent and sound. We talked about this in perception as well. Mm-hmm. Olfactory, auditory. Yeah. Many animals rely on those way more than visual. Dogs, for instance, as you said, their primary senses are olfactory and auditory. Like vision lags way behind. I think they see in like black and white or like grayscale or some shit like that, and like not like super sharp. So the MSR doesn't take that into account at all. So dogs could technically, I know there's research saying dogs self-recognize via scent, but not vision, which is interesting in its own right.
Yeah, that kind of begs the question of like the criterion a little bit, but
right.
Yeah.
But to be fair, the MSR is classified as just a visual physical test. So let's be a little fair.
It's not meant to be all encompassing.
Right, exactly. Another criticism is that the MSR tends to create an initial to prolonged aggression response in some species, like those gorillas, which prevents the animals from calmly considering what the reflection actually represents, because they're too busy being like, fuck you, other meat.
You.
Yeah. This is why almost every single monkey that has been tested has failed the test, because they're immediately like, blah! Like freaking
time
out.
to murder.
I mean, cats do that.
Sometimes. Cats will definitely do that. Actually, I think that was my spoiler, with the cat being like, fuck you, like jumping around in front of the mirror.
Yeah.
Although the rhesus macaques, which I think we've talked about before on the podcast, are beginning to show, based on like more like, I guess not strict, but like more refined testing, that they can self-recognize actually, like with vision, but not as well as the other species. Also, the red mark, if they use the red mark, which now they do in the classic MSR, may not be recognized as abnormal by animals. They just might be like, whatever, there's a red mark on my head, I don't care. Which I believe is totally valid as like a criticism. And actually, so this to it, like anecdotally, and I have another example. Anecdotally, I swear my cats know that that's them in the mirror. They just couldn't give a shit because they're cats. But then remember the 3 elephants and only one of them passed? They think that only one of them took interest. The other 2 were just like, okay, great, that's me. What do you want from me?
Yeah, what do you
I'm like, great, good for you. Can I get some food or something? So yeah, the red dot doesn't necessarily mean anything to the animal as abnormal. They're just like, okay, well, whatever.
That's a good point.
Additionally, there are some animals that are blind, so that's kind of a problem. Like certain fish, like moles are blind, like they can't see themselves, so the MSR just doesn't work on them. And then I'm going to wrap it all up with this last thought, which is where it gets philosophical. Lastly, and this kind of, again, veers into philosophical debate territory, does self-recognition via visual stimuli necessarily imply self-awareness? And a lot of people will say no. Do you know the difference between self-recognition and self-awareness?
So one of them is to say, that's me in the mirror. But another one is to say, I am me.
Yes, basically. Self-recognition, you're like, I recognize myself apart from other people or like animals or whatever. Like, this is me, that's someone else. Self-awareness is like, you are aware of yourself as an entity, what your thoughts are, what your personality is, what your beliefs are, like what your emotions are, how you are autonomous in the greater world around you. And a lot of people will say, okay, great, like an animal can self-recognize, but that doesn't mean they know shit about like who they are, what they're feeling and whatnot, which I don't know, like, again, philosophical debate, it's really hard to, like, know that without an animal being like, I can suddenly speak your language, let me tell you. You know what I mean?
No, but
I'll give you what for.
It's actually very related to this, which is why I went down that Coco rabbit hole the other day.
Yeah.
It was because I was telling Daniel about this bird who asked, what color am I? And it's kind of the same thing where like the bird sees itself, actually in the video, the bird sees itself in the mirror, realizes that that is him. So that's the first half of what you were saying. I recognize that these motions are connected to my motions. That's my reflection. But then he asked, what color am I? You taught me all of these colors. Which one am I? And
that's
even in
crazy.
That, it is. And it's one of the very few examples of that self-awareness. And that's why I started looking into Coco, because she would have, full on conversations about herself. Mm-hmm. But it is still
Coco sad. Oh, it breaks my heart.
It's still a very tricky question to disentangle, even given the different definitions, because you can still get into like splitting hairs of like, okay, well, just because I'm asking what color I am doesn't mean that I understand,
right?
That I am like
right.
Descartes or whatever, like, it's not necessarily the same. And I don't think that there is a straightforward indicator of awareness.
Right.
It is fascinating.
Without them just straight up telling us, we'll never know. It's why we can't research dreams in people themselves, because everything has to be like, I remember personally this, and the other person just has to believe.
Yeah.
Right. Have you ever seen the dog Bunny?
The dog Bunny.
Oh,
No.
this is
Wait,
Very
maybe?
fascinating rabbit hole. So I think it was over the pandemic, maybe even earlier than that. A woman who teaches speech to children, like, I think she's a speech therapist or something along those lines. She wanted to know if she could teach her dog words. And so she set up buttons on the floor that were like food, water,
I know this.
outside.
Yeah.
So she set up really basic buttons that have a recording of her saying these words. And the dog learned so much so quickly that I don't know how many buttons this dog is up to, but the floor is covered in them. And the dog basically makes complex sentences. Like instead of barking at the door, it'll be like, stranger outside or things like that, or danger outside, like tells the owner what's going on. And I don't remember, without paraphrasing, exactly what the question was, but I'm pretty sure the dog asked something along the lines of like, why am I a dog, or something very self-aware and freaky.
That for some reason kind of upsets me. No. Why am I the way that I am? It's like what depressed people ask themselves. Oh no.
I might be, incorrectly paraphrasing. You should really fact check that, but it was very unsettling. And this is one of those dogs that kind of has like the human looking eyes. So I was like, I'm done. I'm done with this dog.
I'm out.
Awesome. This is great.
That was great.
You guys, this is such a nerdy episode.
This is such a nerdy episode. You're right.
Love it.
Well, I hope you guys liked this super nerdy episode, but especially if your name is Vixie, because we love you, Vixie. Thank you for being our newest patron. Welcome to the family. We are extremely grateful to you. And for everybody else who's not Vixie, you should also look in the mirror and evaluate your life.
Oh my God.
I'm just kidding. Anyway, come hang out with us. Go Ask Alice Pod on Twitter. There's a link tree to all of our links. Come hang out with us on Discord. You can sub to our Patreon if you're not already. But if you are, we're really, really grateful to you, and we love you very much. I guess the free thing to do is just like write a review, subscribe, whatever.
Tell your friends.
Do.
Tell your friends. Tell your friends. That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're already talking to them about the show. Like, I know you're going to start saying Pappy Cack.
Pappy cake.
All right, yeah, and we love Vixie.
We love Vixie.
We love Vixie.
Bye.
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 Now for some fun for the whole family.
I love you, Van.